The Zulu people of southern Africa rose up against British rule in the Bambatha Rebellion. The uprising took place in 1906 in Zululand, a traditional region in what was then the British colony of Natal and is now the KwaZulu-Natal province of South Africa. It was led by Bambatha, who was also known as Bambatha or Bambatha. The British victory brought an end to the traditional life of the Zulu. The Zulu lived by farming their own land and raising cattle. In the early 1900s, British-owned mines and farms in southern Africa were suffering from a labor shortage. To convince Zulu men to take paying jobs, the British imposed a poll tax of £1 on every male over the age of 18, including Zulu men. A poll tax is a tax of a uniform amount levied on each individual. In 1887, Zululand was annexed by the colony of Natal, and the Zulu were gradually stripped of most of their arable land. There was widespread poverty, made worse by a series of natural disasters. In 1903, an epidemic of East Coast fever decimated the cattle. There were swarms of locusts, and enormous damage was caused by a severe hailstorm in 1905. All these factors led to a serious economic depression. Africans had to pay a hut tax and a dog tax, and were subjected to a system of forced labor, which caused widespread hardship and resentment. White farmers occupied more and more land, establishing farms and sugar plantations. After the South African War, there was a shortage of agricultural labor. Rather than work for the white farmers, the black workforce was increasingly attracted to the gold mines of the Witwatersrand, where they could earn better wages in 1905. In an attempt to increase the supply of labor and force more black men into becoming agricultural laborers, the Natal government under Charles Smythe imposed a poll tax of £1 on all men over the age of 18. To pay the tax, African men would have to work for cash. Chiefs and their subjects were required to report to the offices of their respective resident magistrates to pay the poll tax on January 1, 1906. However, while some chiefs ordered their subjects to pay, many people opted for passive resistance and simply refused. Bambatha was the chief of a Zulu tribe of the Mpanza Valley, and the new poll tax angered many of his people. Zulu families were poor, and they already had to pay a hut tax on their households. Then, in February 1906, Bambatha and his people refused to pay the poll tax. When the Zulu people refused to pay the tax, Great Britain seized control of Zululand. Bambatha fled north to ask Dinuzulu, the king of the Zulu, for advice. When Bambatha returned, he and a group of supporters attacked British troops. At first, these attacks were successful. In April 1906, a British army marched toward Bambatha's soldiers. Over several weeks, the Zulu fought the British with traditional weapons. These weapons were no match for the modern weapons of the British. Between 3,000 and 4,000 Zulu were killed in the rebellion. It was reported that Bambatha had been killed in action by Natal government forces, but this claim was disputed by his supporters, who believed that he fled to Mozambique. After the uprising, the British sent King Dinuzulu and thousands of other Zulu people to prison. Many rebels were beaten as punishment. Dinuzulu was accused of giving orders to Bambatha to start the rebellion and was put on trial for treason. Although he steadfastly protested his innocence, he was found guilty and sentenced to 4 years imprisonment in March 1908. Dinuzulu be released and transported to the farm Ukik in the Transvaal, where he died in 1913 at the age of 44 or 45. He was succeeded by his son Solomon Dinuzulu. The Bambatha Rebellion of 1906 was the last example of black armed resistance against South Africa's white colonial rulers.